I'm gonna take a little bit of a long way home. There's a homestead that I located early in the spring when it was just blowing snow, terrible cold and snowy, and it was towards the end of the day, and I was worried that I might get stuck out there, so I had to start heading out. So I'm gonna take a little bit of a scenic route home, and we're gonna go by there, and it was pretty cool, so we're gonna explore it a little bit. All right. Oh yeah, look at that. There's a piece of metal. All right, good sign. Okay, so we're out here in the neighborhood of that homestead site I told you guys we wanted to stop at, and I don't know exactly where it's at, so we're gonna have to do a little bit of wandering around out here. So that was a good sign back there, that piece of metal. So a lot of these old homesteads, even though they were built back in the 1800s, well, late 1800s, early 1900s, that doesn't mean that was the only time they were used. A lot of them were used for cow camps all the way up into the 50s and the 60s. Okay, here's another little clue. There's a tin can. Yeah, it's hard to believe that they homesteaded out in this marginal, desolate country like this, but they did. The homesteads scattered all over this country. In fact, at one time, they say out here, there was a homestead on every 320 acre parcel. Oh guys, check this out. Right out here in the middle of nowhere, this rock wall. Look at that. Okay, so I remember running across the rock wall before. I don't remember if this is the same rock wall, but this tells me we're in range of a homestead out here. So a lot of people ask me, why do they build these rock walls? And there's a couple of reasons, the most common of which is just they were clearing the rocks out of where they were growing some kind of dry land grain. So in this case, I don't know, maybe that side, I don't know. But one of the two sides they were clearing the rocks out of, and so they just piled them in a row. And then that also, in a lot of cases, had the secondary benefit of keeping their livestock out of the area where they were trying to cultivate crops, or keeping their livestock in an area where they wanted to contain them. So which brings me to the other reason why they built these rock walls, because if you look around out here now, you see a lot of small juniper trees. Juniper is an invasive species. All these small juniper trees, there were never juniper trees out in this country back when this was homesteaded, or at least not like this. There were a few of them on the ridge lines and the rocky outcroppings. So the other reason why they built rock walls is because rock was the main material they had to build fences out of. So this is interesting about this particular rock wall because the sand is blown up against it. So this was probably about 4 feet tall altogether, but the sand's drifted in and it started to make a little natural sand dune there. So it appears as a lot shorter than it was when it was originally built. God, look at this, guys. Here's just a beautiful section of it. Look how clean that is. It just keeps going. I'm still following this rock wall. Man, it is turning into a long one. It's crazy how much work went into building this thing. Just thinking about how long this is. I'm probably 3/4 of a mile down it, and it's still going. I've seen a lot of smaller ones that are just kind of fencing off the yard of a homestead, but this is pretty crazy how far this one goes. This was a project of years, not weeks, or not even months. This was a homesteader living out here for years working on this. All right, so I don't know if the camera can see it, but there's a corner of that fence, and all the way out there is where we were walking along it. And now, check this out. I started seeing a couple of boards like that, and then look at this, guys. This is a classic dugout. So this is all filled in with sand from over the years, but the idea behind these was they excavated out a pit. This was a certain style of homestead that they made only in areas where there was soil like this that was easy to dig in. So this is super cool. I can't tell you guys how stoked I am that I found this again. So basically you can see these rocks over here. So they dug out a hole in the ground, and then what that allowed them to do was use the earth and rocks for their walls, and they didn't have to harvest as much timber to raise their walls higher. So out in this country, juniper, like I said, was a long ways away from this particular spot. In fact, this juniper tree that's growing right here in the end of that homestead right here, that juniper tree probably was not there. Well, it definitely was not there when this was built. So the dugout design allowed them to require less timber to build, and they were able to utilize the earth itself as part of their shelter. So out in this country, I wouldn't say they're common, but I found a few of them over the years, these dugouts. Just incredible. And it's filled in over the years, but look, there's some kind of a cabinet back there or something. What kind of treasures do you think are down underneath all that? Pretty crazy, guys. Okay, that is the homestead that I've been looking for again out here. So now we're just gonna wander around this area and see what, if anything else, we can find out here. It's interesting, that homestead they built right down there, just off of this rise a little bit. Now the wind's coming from our backs, and that homestead's up there. So I bet they put it down there, down on that side, just so they had a little bit of break from the wind out here. Man, guys, look at this. Just another massive pile of rocks out here. So I always think about back in the day, what their lives were like, those people that lived out here, and those massive piles of rocks there, and then the dust and the, you know, what I'm seeing here is the sand drifted up against that rock wall, the dugout, little dwelling that they lived in, and then just the massive amount of rocks that they had to pick out of these fields out here to get anything to grow. You just think, man, that was their life, right? Rocks and dust, rocks and dust. And if they did everything right, if they could tolerate the dust, and if they could move enough rocks, then maybe they could grow enough dryland wheat or dryland rye or winter wheat or something like that to take to town to trade for enough stuff, or to grind into enough flour to get them through another season out here. And if you imagine like how sealed up our modern homes are and everything, and these homes back then, like imagine the dust out in this country would have just been a constant battle. And no matter what you did with the materials that you had to work with, you're never going to keep that dust out of your house. I always think about stuff like that and just how much different and how much tougher their lives were back then. Got a few more boards in here, some barrel bands up there, and then look at this guy right here. I thought this was interesting. Look at that piece of wire around it. Oh, there's one on the other side too. So I bet this was some kind of skid they had set up to pull behind a horse or a mule or something. That might even have been something that they stacked rocks on and drug behind the horses. Now, there's quite a number of boards in here. And then look at all this. So it's talking about, you know, what was your life made of out here? Well, so these are barrel bands, right? So it would have been, I forgot a third thing that your life would have been made up of. It would have been rocks, dust, and hauling water. You probably could never haul enough water out here to feel like you were ever going to get ahead. Yeah, I'm wondering if this was kind of a little barnyard or something here. Got another post standing up there. I don't know if that was a privy hole or maybe you probably can't tell from the camera, but that's actually a decent little like 2-foot deep hole in the ground. So it might have been a root cellar or maybe a privy hole. More likely a root cellar. Another barrel band. What else are we gonna find? I just have a feeling there's something else in here that we're missing. Oh, look at this. Bunch of glass. Oh yeah, there's a bunch more boards there. Okay, look at this. So this was another building here. More barrel bands. Little bit of a depression there. Maybe that was a root cellar. Who knows? All right, check this out. So this is a piece of their wall board. See how they had flattened tin cans on there? So they probably had flattened tin cans that they used for the siding on this thing. Yeah, this must have been the main homestead right here. All right, here's a bit of a can dump. Like the cows have been in here tearing it up. But might be some treasures to be found in there. Well, guys, I think that's going to be about a wrap for this adventure. I'm running out of daylight. I still got a couple hours to get back home. I really appreciate all you guys joining me for these adventures, and I apologize, I've been a little lean on content for a while now, for a couple of months, but I'm getting back into the swing of things. So anyway, guys, I'm going to start working my way back to the truck. So that's all for this one. Coyote Works out.